So let's jump right into troubleshooting an RV furnace and what can possibly go wrong, right? So I'm going to cover 4 different potential issues, reasons you may be having those issues, as well as how to troubleshoot them. As always, we do timestamp the video. So if you want to drop down, see exactly what issue you're having and jump right there so you don't have to watch the whole thing, by all means do so. This is a resource for you. Before I do go into all those, though, I want to explain the normal operation of an RV furnace and how it should be operating. So first off, assuming that you have good voltage on your battery, you have propane in the propane tank, the valve is completely open, and you've set the thermostat higher than the internal ambient temp of the RV, your furnace should kick on. It'll start with the blower. You'll hear that first. Probably 5 to 20 seconds after that, you'll hear the igniter and then the burner kick on. 5 to 10 seconds after that, you'll start to feel hot air come through the vents. You will also feel it coming out of this vent right here. Obviously, don't touch that. That's very hot, but you'll feel the hot air. So pretty simple process, right? What can possibly go wrong? Well, quite a bit. The first one being that nothing happens. You turn it on and it's just dead. This is generally a 12-volt issue. So the first thing we want to do is check your connections on the battery. Make sure there's no corrosion. If there's no corrosion, now it's time to check the battery levels. If you have a multimeter, which I do recommend having on hand, this is a perfect time to use it so you can get that exact voltage. If you don't, you can use the battery meter inside the RV for a rough guess. If you're plugged into shore power and you're having low battery levels, this is a problem with the battery. We do have a video on that as far as to why your battery may not be charging. So if this is the issue you're having, definitely check that one out so you can solve that problem. Once you get that voltage back up, everything should kick on as it should, your blower and everything else. If your battery levels are fine, it still could be a 12-volt problem. It may be a fuse. So you're simply going to check your 12-volt distribution panel inside the RV. You want to check that fuse. If the fuse is blown, simply replace it. And again, everything should operate as normal. Another issue you may be having, and I know this seems so simple, but it's just that your thermostat isn't set at the right temp. If you don't set your thermostat high enough to go above that ambient temperature of the RV, it's just not going to kick on. So you want to make sure you check that one too. I know it's simple, but you'd be surprised how many times that's the cause. The next issue you may be having is that your blower turns on, but the furnace doesn't ignite. So what that tells me is it is probably a propane issue. So the first thing you want to do, again, is always the simplest. Go and check your propane tanks. Make sure that you have propane in the tank and that the valve is completely open. If there's no propane, it's just not going to light. The next potential issue you could be having is just air in the line. So if you essentially have an air bubble or an air gap in that propane line, it's not going to be getting the propane it needs in order to ignite. So the easiest way to do it is turn off the furnace, and then you're going to want to actually turn off your propane. You'll wait for a few minutes, turn the propane back on, then go into the closest fixture, or the stovetop is what most people use. It's the easiest. And then just light the stovetop. Let that burn for about 10 to 15 seconds so that ensures that that entire line is filled with propane instead of air. Turn that off and then try to fire your furnace back up. All right, so another issue could just be that you have insufficient airflow. So in that case, you want to turn off the furnace and then check your air intake on the exterior of your RV just to make sure it's not clogged with any leaves, dirt, or other debris. And unfortunately, if it isn't those, well, we have a couple of larger and more complex issues. It could be that you have a failing sail or limit switch. It could be that you have a failing gas valve, or it could be that you have a failing igniter control circuit board. And unfortunately, if it is any of those issues, well, then it's time to call your local Camping World Service Center or mobile technician to have it get fixed by a trained professional. All right, so let's get into common issue number 3, which is that your furnace is cycling constantly or frequently. So the number one issue that we see is actually pretty simple. It's just that something is affecting the thermostat. So it could be that you have worn seals around your door or window if they're close to the thermostat, and a cold draft is getting in, which is causing that thermostat to be in a cooler area, therefore constantly kicking on. Could also be that you have a vent that is blowing directly near the thermostat or right on it. And in that case, when the heat kicks on, it's going to warm that thermostat up, and then it's going to shut off. Then it's quickly going to drop to that ambient temperature and kick back on, and you're going to get into that cycle. So if that's the case, obviously you need to adjust that vent so that it is angled away from your thermostat. Another quick solution if you are having drafting problems and you can't exactly pin down where it's coming from is just to circulate the air in the RV. So if you have a ceiling fan, this is a great use for it. Or even if you just need to kick the fan on your AC to get some of that air moving, a lot of times that can help balance out that ambient temperature so it shouldn't cycle as frequently. And if you're not having any of those problems, if your seals around your door and windows are all good, you're not getting cold drafts, you don't have a vent blowing right on your thermostat and your air is well mixed, well, then you just may have a faulty thermostat. So then it's time to just get a new thermostat, replace it, and see if that fixes your cycling problem. And the fourth and final issue, although a little more rare, is that your furnace is running, but it won't shut off. Generally, if that's the case, either you have a short in the system, in which case the electrical system has to be diagnosed, or you have a faulty thermostat, in which case a lot of times a replacement thermostat will fix the issue. But honestly, folks, with all that being said, I know a lot of this was surface level, but here's the thing. When we're talking about a furnace, there are a lot of things that can go wrong, like a sail switch. It can be a limit switch. It can be your gas valve that's not closing. Those can be very dangerous things to mess up. If it were me, I would absolutely bring it in to have it worked on, because that is not something you want to mess around with. That being said, if you're looking for something a little more basic, like how to hook up your propane, or something a little more advanced like troubleshooting your battery, well, lucky for you, we have those videos right here. Check them out.